I want to start off tonight by just saying that you are pure love. This universe is made of an invisible substance called grace. Every tree, every planet, every cell in your body, being almost entirely space, is made of grace. The grace of the eternal creative presence, the one mind of which you are a part. And the reason I say that is because it's easy for us to forget sometimes that we're divine. We're studying a course called the Divine Matrix. But it would be a mistake for us to think that that's other than who we are. And I have to remind myself of that. Because as we bang off of the walls of life, bouncing around in relationships and finances and diets and sicknesses and aches and pains and all of the rest of that stuff, it's really easy for us to forget that we are eternal spiritual beings, divine, sacred, and that we are pure love. And when we forget that we're pure love, then we fall out of love and we fall out of grace. And then life gets hard. Life gets difficult. But all the stuff that can come my way and your way, all of those dark things that can come our way, if you just know that you're love, and someone insults you, know that you're love. When your butt hurts, know that you're love. When you didn't get enough sleep, know that you're love. When you have a financial worry, know that you're love. And that the entire universe is made of love. And when you're love, you're one with the universe. And when you're one with the universe, then you're in a participatory universe. You're in a participatory universe where you and the universe are dancing together. You're not other than. Every part of this whole divine matrix that makes up the visible and invisible universe, every part of that is also a part of you. And you and I must start living from the answer. We ask for a thing to come true. We say a prayer and we hope that it will come true. And we need to stop hoping that it will come true and start living from the answer. Living in the knowledge that we are part of the creative fabric of the universe. Some of you have been studying for a long time, and some of you have been in very deep and beautiful, precious, sacred trainings, and you've come a long, long ways, but you still have this one niggling little thing that hasn't been totally addressed, and it's called self-doubt. And that's our job here. By learning the divine matrix and you are the placebo and all of the other things that we learn, we learn that there is a reality going on around us that is us. And so we need to know that we are the divine matrix. This is not a class for you to learn something. I have nothing to teach you. In fact, Gregg Braden has nothing to teach you. Because being God, you already know it. And I'm not saying anything that's new to you. It's you know it already. But there's a part of you that has not yet awakened. What is that part? What is that dark part? That shaded part that still denies that you are divine and that you're absolutely perfect exactly the way you are and exactly the way you are not. You have an instructor within you. What is that instructor saying? Can you move that instructor off of his or her position into a position where he or she is constantly saying to you, you're divine, you're okay, exactly the way you are and exactly the way you are not. And is every part of your life exactly the way you want it? No. Is every part of your life exactly perfect as it might be? No, because we're becoming. God is, and we're becoming. And of that dual, we are the most sacred because we are in action. We are evolving. We're growing mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You read a chapter in this book and you come to a paragraph and you're going, I don't get it. Maybe you reread it and you say, well, I still don't totally get it, but I'm just going to move on. And then somewhere inside of you, you blame yourself and you say, I shouldn't really have done that. I should. No, you shouldn't. You're just fine the way you are and the way you are not. Now, the question is, why is the imagination so powerful? Whoa, boy, the imagination. You know, the difference between us and other creatures is our imagination. And some people might say, well, it's our ability to think about thinking, or it's our ability to have a certain consciousness. But I have to tell you, cuttlefish and octopus, oh man, those are some bright creatures. They are some really bright creatures. But we are the only ones with imaginations. And if you can imagine yourself being the creator of the reality you seek, if you can imagine that, then why not create that? Or do you have some old lingering Christian values hanging around you that say that I'm not worthy? You say to God, I am not worthy that thou shouldst come to me, or that I could be a part of you, or that we could be one. I'm not worthy. Is that some of that stuff still hanging around in your mind? Is there still something, are you still hearing the voice of a mom or a dad or a grandparent or an uncle or somebody saying you can't do anything right, or look at you, or shame on you, or whatever? And do you know that when you address that, when you go to that place, when you hear that voice, that's your imagination recalling and revisiting that time? So can you be in charge of your imagination? Can you send your imagination into the heights of divinity and sacredness? And if you were to do that, how would your life change? If you and I were to stop being these struggling creatures who are in self-doubt, and we knew that we were all powerful incarnations of the most great divine presence of all the universes, the creative mind, if we knew that we were of that and we could use that, then we would be doing what Jesus told us to do. These things you see me doing, you will do these and more. You've heard me say this before. Jesus didn't come to teach us to be Christians. Jesus came to teach us to be Christs. Buddha didn't come to teach us to be Buddhas. He came to teach us to be Buddhas. Did you know that the Buddha that we think of as Buddha is only one of 65 Buddhas? So I want to open this up now, and I want to discuss this with you. And I want you to talk about what's in your heart from what I just talked to you about you being divine, only held back by self-doubts. Now we're family. We're family here. And you might be saying, well, I don't know. I don't want to put my hand up because that's what I'm talking about. That you don't have something to say that's worth hearing, that you're not important enough. What do you think about what I just said? What are the thoughts going on in your mind about your worthiness? Or what stands in the way of your worthiness? Other people are waiting to hear what's coming from you because your mind shares with their mind and it opens up a part of them. So let's hear from you. What are your thoughts about what we're talking about here so far tonight? Randy says you can just put your hand up like this, or you can go down and hit the reaction button and put a hand up.
Mubina, were you raising your hand?
I was adjusting the screen, but I do have a question.
Okay, well let's bring you on for that.
Yeah. So what stands in my way is certain people that I would really appreciate acknowledgement, acceptance, and approval from that I'm not getting. And I'm speaking about family of origin. That makes it very hard for me to feel then that I am good enough, because it feels like I've had to build that up alone without support from the key important people in my life.
So if you came to the end of your life, now this is a myth, this is not going to happen, but if it were so that you came to the end of your life and then you went and stood before the master, would you say, I really tried to be all that I could be. I really tried to be divine and to be your perfect child, but my family of birth wouldn't let me. Would that make sense to you?
It wouldn't feel very good, no. It wouldn't make sense.
So, but it is hard. It is hard because we do seek each other's approval. And that's why when we're elevating ourselves, when we're growing, when we're expanding spiritually, We need to have different societies that we play with. And I come from a family in origin. I think they all think I'm a total goofball. They're all right-wing, gun-toting, Trump, Republican, um, uh, Christ died on the cross for my sins kind of people. And I know, I think they all think I went off the deep end. And one of them keeps telling me Jesus is waiting for you to come back to him. Well, Jesus and I are already together, but I have to come to you. I have to come to you, Mabina, and the rest of you. I have to come to you to find my family, to find my approval. Somebody that recognizes me. And you need to come to me, and you need to come to each other. And we need to just forgive those other people and just listen to them, and don't stick your nose out and say something that's going to get you whacked. Do you know when that's going to happen? Just don't do it. Just hold your silence and wait until you come back together with the spiritual family, and then share who you are. And together we grow.
Right. Thank you.
Okay? You're welcome. Now, this is an important time, my friends. It's an important time, and I'm not going to go forward without hearing from you. So we can sit here until 8 o'clock if you want, but.
Go ahead, Kayla.
Oh, hi. Whenever I listen to this, and it's not all new what you're saying, about this, but the truth is that it's really so simple, and yet I and people around me so often have kept feeding into these self-doubts and in feeding by repeating our stories of feeding into what isn't working. And it's like, it's so easy. It's almost like it's a trap that I can just fall into sometimes, as opposed to, and remind myself about that place which knows a higher place, and to find the techniques that are going to help me to not only stay, move out of that, all of those old anchors, that don't serve, and to come up with the wisdom and the knowing. I mean, I know, right? But it's like I have to feel that difference in the experience of being in that place as the co-creator. Like, it's just in the work that we were reading today, this week, of being in that place of creating things from our heart space, from our feelings, and really shifting. It's like moving our feet to a different reality. And that's what they were talking about in some of the testing that was done about the different theories about, where the, about what levels and different realities, and keep moving into that place of where we are creating. And how much time in a day do I spend there, as opposed to the other spaces? And at the end of the day, maybe looking at ways in which I could begin my next day on a different basis, and what are some of the things that will help me to become that amazing creator. I mean, I know it's there. It's just being in that place of really believing, and not picking up what everybody else is trying to say, and not feeding it. I think that's a big piece. Not feeding all the beliefs and all of the stuff and our stories that don't serve. Anyways, that's where I'm at today.
Thank you,
Thank
Kayla.
you.
Kayla, that is so well said. And I so deeply appreciate you sharing that, because you're absolutely right. What we feed grows, and what we don't feed starves. And in the Orient, in Asia, there are all of these Buddhist and Zen monasteries, and young people go to those monasteries and give up their lives so that they can be in a place of sacredness, so that they don't have to doubt and fall back into the swamp of disbelief. But Paramahansa Yogananda, who is my master, one of my masters, incredible man. And if those of you who are listening to me, if you have not read Autobiography of a Yogi, you have a real treat in store for you. Go today and buy Autobiography of a Yogi. It's just fun. It's a fun book, and I promise it'll change your life. But Paramahansa Yogananda said, of all of the people, the great saints and the great masters and the great spiritual leaders, the one that he maybe admired most was a man who worked in a train station, and he had a family. And so he lived a temporal life. You know, he earned money to pay for food and shelter for his family and education and clothes, and struggled and interfaced with all sorts of people every day, and still he maintained his divinity. Oh boy, that's hard. Oh boy, that's hard. But you know what? The great teachers, the ones who are going to break us away from this descending society that we live in, with global warming and political unrest and countries like China arming themselves more and more nuclearly. What's going to break that is people who live real lives, who are broadcasting the light around them every day in their real lives. To go to a grocery store and get your order and have it finished, and then to look at the clerk and say, "Can I tell you something?" And he or she looks at you and you say, "I wanted you to just know that I'm here right now, loving you. I love you exactly the way you are." And then walk out of the store. How hard is that? Do you think that person will ever forget that? The answer is no. And will they think you're a little goofy? Maybe or maybe not, but you were another human being, a part of the human family that touched their heart. And you opened a part of them that had been closed. That's why it's important for us. But we have to be able to come back together with a class. We have to be able to come back together with a congregation. We have to come back together to be fed and to be renewed. And that's why we're here.
Yes.
Who else would like to share?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Joanne. You're
Okay.
muted.
Yeah. Oh, I'm. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm okay. I loved what you said, and I found this chapter to be so amazing. Like I was having trouble understanding key number 10. And so when I read things like that, the self-doubt kicks in. When I read Dispenza and I read his, stories about how people have changed their lives, and I'm still struggling to meditate, and I feel like I'm not good enough. And so I try and stop it. But when I read these other things about all these people doing great stuff, and here I am, still at step one, it makes it hard. So I have started doing what you suggest. I do the affirmations. I use that I'm a good and worthy person. I say that a lot. But still, when I read these other success stories, I don't have one yet, but I'm going to get there. I believe that. But like I said, when I was reading this chapter, were things I found really difficult to understand. Like if I want to live in the belief that I want, and I'm supposed to do it without ego. And I'm thinking, well, if I'm talking about what I want for me, isn't that my ego? So I get confused and then I spiral.
Yeah, it's easy to get confused. And just quickly on that one point, No, if you're asking for what you want, it's not your ego. And I'll tell you why, is because desire is divine.
Oh,
Like lust, or coveting something, that's not divine, but your desires, your wants call you to your sacred path. And sometimes it's as simple as, I want to buy a new fishing pole. It doesn't, it doesn't have to be some big thing, but you need to begin to follow your desires and follow your wants, and not think that they're ego driven, because they're not. Your desires are sacred. Otherwise, we don't grow. We're called forward by the yearnings of our hearts. One more thing I could quickly want to say to you, Joanne, and that's that I love Joe Dispenza, and I love his work. I love his classes. I think he's just a master. He's magnificent. And when you read his books, you read about all of those people who do all of these amazing, amazing things. He has thousands of students, not hundreds, thousands. And he picked those few that were, I don't want to say exceptional, but showed up in a way that he could talk about them.
okay.
The rest of them are just like you and me. They're just on their way.
Yeah.
So
The other thing I found amazing was when I looked up Neville Goddard, and I thought, oh my God, he was writing about this 50 years ago, and then the great masters were writing about it 2,000 years ago.
yes,
It's like, this is not new.
yes, yes. This
Yeah.
this is the core of us as human beings. This is the truth of us as human beings. If you could go back 1,000 years, 5,000 years ago, and say to a human being, "Who are you?" you'd get a very simple answer, because they wouldn't have all the clutter. We got all the clutter now. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Next.
I'm going to tell a story. I've been thinking about it all week. I've lived this story for over 45 years. I've never had a title to put on it. And what I have received from the last two classes, not just this one, but Joe Dispenza also, was spontaneous remission, which is what it was, but I've never labeled it that before. 1976, May the 20th, which was a Thursday, between 10:30 and 11:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. I sat down on a chair. I was a drinking alcoholic. When I stood up from that chair, I was a non-drinking alcoholic. Never had a drink since then. Never had a desire to have a drink since then. But what it's taught me that I've already experienced that one time. Now, I talked last week about extreme tremors. I still have those, but I have a bigger belief that I'm going to solve that problem now, because I put a title on an event that happened to me very profound in my life. Now I have a title to put on it, and I can do my spontaneous remission I'm working on. I don't have a roadmap yet, but I'm headed that direction. Thank you.
I'm so proud of you, Murray. I really am so proud of you. Thank you. Lucelena?
I do have a question about what is being told in this class, and it's about this this feeling that sometimes is your own family or your closest friends or whatever that are the people that doesn't understand you or put you down or this is my question. Why do we are born into these families, or why do we choose to be? Why? Because I also seen stories where people have really got into their shining moments or whatever because they've been so supported by their families, or because I don't know, people that are singers and they've been born into a family of singers. And so my question is, why some of us we choose to be born into families or surrounded by people that will always put us down and make it all more difficult for us. And I understand what you said about not caring and just finding your way. That's what I've been doing. That's why I'm here in Vancouver, living in Vancouver. But But why? My question is goes back to why? Why do we have to make it so hard on us, or why? My question is more why or for what? You know, some of us seems to have chosen to the hard way.
In a couple of weeks, we're going to be watching the Olympics, the World Olympics. And the people who go to the Olympics are called Olympic athletes. They're internationally famous contenders for the medals. How they got there, they weren't born that way. They were born into families. Some of them were born into poverty. They weren't born into families of great athletes. Most of them were not. Most of them were born into just regular families. And then when they kept going to exercise or to run or to lift weights or to dance or to ice skate, they didn't have the support of everybody. What are you doing? Why don't you get a job job? Mom and dad are supporting you while you're fooling around with this track and field baloney. Why don't you get a job job and help us out a little bit here? It was not easy for them.
I know, but why?
They became top athletes. Now you and I are in training to become spiritual masters. And we weren't born into a family of spiritual masters. But the way you build muscle is by lifting weights. And the way you build compassionate strength as a spiritual leader is by living under the pressure of those who are not. Otherwise, how can you ever be a spiritual master? How can you ever talk to people as a spiritual master who are going through the things that you're talking about if you've never experienced them? So not only did you get born into that on purpose, but your purpose is to grow through that, staying forgiving and loving and open, and staying focused on who you are as the divine spiritual being. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. Lifting weights is not easy, but it builds muscle. And this builds the strength that we need to be spiritual masters. Lucy Elena, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the answer. Thank you.
Randy, do you have anybody else hanging out, or can I go forward?
At the moment, I do not think we have anybody else waiting. Yes, please
okay.
go forward.
We're going to go into the breakout rooms for 20 minutes. And your breakout question is to create a new and different reality. My awareness and my feelings have to be focused on how and what. So let me repeat that because that can sound a little confusing. If you want to create a new reality, then where and how do you have to focus your awareness and your feelings? New, brand new. I don't want to hear about what you've done before. Starting today, to create a new and different reality, a spiritual oneness with the universe. Where do you have to focus your awareness and your feelings? New, what's new? To create a new and different reality, where must you focus your awareness and your feelings? You'll have maybe a little bit more than 20 minutes. Don't waste the time. Stay on topic.
Okay, I've got 25 minutes on the clock right now, Bob.
That'll be good.
You good with that?
Yep.
Okay, folks, here we go. Remember to accept your invitations.